The keeper of storiest brass bell above the door chimed softly. As another customer entered, whispered tales. The small bookshop nestled between a bakery and a watchmaker's workshop on Meridian Street. Zalara looked up from organizing a shelf of leather-bound volumes, her violet eyes carefully hidden behind brown contact lenses, studying the newcomer with practiced interest. "Welcome," she said, her voice carrying that peculiar melody that made humans pause and smile without knowing why. "Is there something particular you're seeking today?" The elderly man shuffled forward, drawn like so many others to the shop's inexplicable warmth. Steam rose from coffee cups that never seemed to empty, and books whispered secrets from their shelves, though humans dismissed this as mere imagination. The creaking of old wood and paper. Zalara had been here for 3 Earth years now, longer than she'd spent anywhere since the convergence took her homeworld of Nithara. She'd chosen this form carefully, young enough to seem harmless, old enough to run a business, unremarkable enough to blend into the human tapestry of Millbrook City. Her true appearance, crystalline skin that shifted between starlight and shadow, 6 arms capable of reading multiple texts simultaneously, and neural tendrils that could absorb knowledge through touch, remained carefully hidden. The bookshop served multiple purposes. To humans, it was a quaint refuge filled with rare manuscripts, first editions, and curious texts in dead languages. To Zalara, it was a laboratory where she studied humanity's greatest strength, their stories, every myth, every legend, every tale of triumph against impossible odds. She cataloged them all, searching for the pattern that had made humans the only species to consistently defeat the convergence. "I'm looking for something about courage, I suppose," the old man said, wringing his weathered hands. "My grandson's shipping out with the Space Defense Corps next week. Wants to fight those alien raiders everyone's whispering about." Zalara's pulse quickened. The convergence scouts had found Earth faster than anticipated. "Ah," she murmured, moving to a particular shelf. "Perhaps this will help." She handed him a slim volume bound in midnight blue leather. Chronicles of the Forgotten Wars. To him, it would appear to be historical fiction about ancient human conflicts. In reality, it contained tactical analyses of successful resistance movements against convergence forces from 17 different worlds, all translated and disguised as human military history. "Thank you, dear," the man said, coins clinking as he paid. "There's something special about this place, makes an old soul feel hopeful." After he left, Zalara touched her hidden neural crown through her human hair. The translation matrices were working perfectly. Soon, when the convergence arrived in force, humanity would be ready with strategies that had taken her people millennia to develop, and they wouldn't even know where their inspiration came from. The bell chimed again. Daria Dermica Torrenson had always been the kid who lived in books rather than reality. At 16, with unruly copper hair and clothes that never quite fit right, he was invisible to most of Millbrook High's social ecosystem. That's why he'd taken to cutting through the old district after school, where tourists didn't venture, and he could pretend the antique shops were doorways to other worlds. The bookshop appeared on a Tuesday afternoon like it had always been there, though Micah could have sworn the space was empty the day before. Whispered Tales read the hand-painted sign, letters seeming to shimmer in the autumn light. Inside, the impossible architecture made him dizzy. Rooms that seemed larger than the building's exterior should allow, shelves that stretched higher than the ceiling should permit. The proprietor, a young woman with an otherworldly grace, looked up from behind the counter. "You have the eyes of a true reader," she said, and Micah felt heat rise in his cheeks. No one ever noticed him, let alone complimented him. "I'm just browsing," he mumbled, but found himself drawn to a section marked restricted texts, though he was certain the sign hadn't been there moments before. His fingers traced spines bearing titles in languages he didn't recognize, until one seemed to pulse under his touch. The Nitharan Codex, red golden letters that shimmered and reformed into English as he watched. The book fell open in his hands to an illustration that stole his breath. A world of crystal spires reached toward twin suns, while beings of living, starlight-tended gardens that grew stories instead of flowers. The text described their culture, their science, their art, and their destruction at the hands of something called the Convergence. The last of the Nitharans, Micah read aloud, believed that consciousness itself was the universe's greatest weapon against entropy. They encoded their final knowledge into stories, scattering them across the galaxy in hopes that other species might. The book slammed shut. Micah looked up to find the shopkeeper standing beside him, her skin flickering just for an instant with an inner light that matched the beings in the illustration. Her eyes, no longer brown but deep violet, held galaxies of sorrow. "You shouldn't have been able to read that," she whispered. "But I did." Micah's voice cracked, but he stood straighter. "You're her, aren't you? The last Nitharan?" Selara 4. Her human disguise felt suddenly fragile, stared at this unremarkable human boy, who had just accomplished something that should have been impossible. The codex was written in quantum script, readable only by beings with crystalline neural structures. "How?" she breathed. Micah shrugged, hugging the book to his chest. "I've always been good with languages and stories. They speak to me." He met her eyes without flinching. "Your world, it was beautiful." For the first time in years, Selara felt something she'd thought lost forever: hope. The convergence of the days after Micah discovered her secret. The first convergence ship appeared in Earth's outer system. Captain Juno Valdez watched the sensor readings from the bridge of the DSC Endeavour, humanity's newest deep space cruiser, and felt ice form in her veins. "Ma'am, it's massive," reported Lieutenant Kieran Frost, his usual composure cracking. 15 kilometers long. Composition unknown. "It's not responding to any hails." Down in Millbrook City, Selara felt the quantum disturbance like a physical blow. The shop's hidden systems groaned from Nitharan biotechnology hummed to life, displaying holographic tactical data that would have sent any human scientist into raptures of joy and terror. "They're here," she told Micah, who'd been spending every afternoon in the shop since their revelation. 3 cycles ahead of my calculations. "What do we do?" The boy's voice was steady, but she could smell his fear, sharp and metallic. "So different from Nitharan emotional resonance. We prepare for war," Selara said, her human disguise finally dropping completely. Crystalline skin caught the light like a prism, and her 6 arms moved in perfect coordination as she pulled books from shelves that hadn't existed in human perception. "These contain everything my people learned about fighting the convergence. Battle tactics, technological innovations, psychological warfare techniques, all disguised as human fiction and history." Micah watched in awe as she worked. "You've been preparing us." "Trying to. But the convergence, they don't just conquer worlds, Micah. They consume them. Every story, every dream, every spark of creativity, they devour it all and leave behind perfect, empty order." The shop trembled as sonic booms echoed overhead. Through the window, they could see military vehicles racing through the streets, while civilians pointed at the sky, where the massive alien vessel hung like a dark moon. "Why stories?" Micah asked, helping her stack the precious books. "Why not weapons or shields or—" "Because stories are weapons," Selara interrupted, her true voice ringing like crystal bells. "The convergence has perfect technology, flawless logistics, overwhelming numbers, but they have no imagination, no capacity for the unexpected. Every species they've conquered fought them with conventional tactics. Do you know what humans do that no other species has ever managed?" Micah shook his head. "You make the impossible seem inevitable. Your myths speak of ordinary individuals defeating gods, of the weak conquering the strong through cleverness and courage. You call it fiction, but to minds like mine and to the convergence these patterns have power." Outside, air raid sirens began to wail. "The books," Selara continued urgently. "They need to reach your military leaders, your scientists, your storytellers. Hidden in each text are strategies that destroyed convergence forces on 17 different worlds. But they'll only work if humans believe they can win." Micah looked at the precious volumes, then at Selara's desperate, beautiful face. "Then we'd better start believing." The first energy beams began falling from the sky. The new chapter 1 year after the Battle of Millbrook, as the historians were already calling it, the Whispered Tales. Bookshop had become something unprecedented. The first embassy between humanity and the growing alliance of convergence survivors. Selara, no longer hiding her true form, stood before the United Earth Council alongside representatives from 12 species that had thought themselves extinct. The Yithran quantum dancers, the melodic Sephira, the hive mind Kethfer all had survived in small numbers, scattered across the galaxy, waiting for someone to prove the convergence could be defeated. "The quantum cascade was unexpected," admitted Vexstar, the Kethfer speaker, their collective consciousness struggling with the concept of individual inspiration. The human strategy of broadcasting fictional narratives during combat created resonance patterns that disrupted convergence neural networks. Captain Valdez, now Admiral Valdez, smiled grimly. Who would have thought that reading The Princess Bride over the comm while ramming their command ship would cause a fleet-wide systems failure? Micah, officially designated as Earth's first xenolinguistic specialist despite being 17, was buried in translation work at a corner table. His ability to read the quantum-encoded Nitharan texts had opened doors to technologies that would advance human civilization by millennia, but more importantly, it had revealed the locations of other survivor communities. The interesting development, Zalara told the assembly, is that the Convergence wasn't destroyed. They were changed. For the first time in their species' history, they experienced uncertainty, chaos, the possibility of being wrong. Through the embassy's quantum communicators came a hesitant signal from what had once been the Convergence homeworld. The message was simple, transmitted in mathematical concepts that any species could understand. We wish to learn about stories. President Chen leaned forward. Are you saying they want to negotiate? I'm saying they want to become something they've never been before, Zalara replied. Individual, creative, unpredictable. She gestured to the small mountain of books surrounding Micah. Your stories didn't just defeat them, they infected them with the one thing their perfect order couldn't contain: imagination. The boy looked up from his translations, excitement bright in his eyes. Zalara, you need to see this. The Andromedans, they've been hiding entire planets inside folded spacetime, keeping their cultures alive by encoding them as myth and legend. And the Vorthan survivors, they've been seeding dead worlds with story crystals that grow into new civilizations. The galaxy, Zalara said softly, is full of refugees who survived by becoming storytellers. Admiral Valdez stood, her expression thoughtful. Then perhaps it's time we stopped hiding and started building something new. 6 months later, the first Interspecies Academy of Narrative Sciences opened on Luna. With Micah as its youngest professor and Zalara as its director, students came from across the known galaxy to study the strange human art of turning impossible dreams into inevitable realities. And in a quiet corner of Millbrook City, the original Whispered Tales bookshop remained open, tended by volunteers who understood that some stories were too important to end. The brass bell above the door still chimed softly whenever someone entered, seeking tales of courage, hope, and the peculiar human habit of making miracles seem mundane. After all, the universe was vast, full of mysteries yet to be discovered, and every mystery began with the same 4 words: once upon a time. End.